So I think a lot of times when we refer to white supremacy, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, like we're always talking about white people. We're always talking about, all these different things. And I just think what we fail to realize is that I think white supremacy, yes, as it pertains to colonization, as it pertains to the European standard, right, the American standard, but I more so think it pertains to America's ways of being, thinking, and behaving, right? There's only one way. And I was thinking about this as I was talking to someone today, and I was thinking about the conversation we were having and how I had a myriad of solutions to the problem. I had a lot of different ways of looking at the situation, and how, I really start to question certain things. I think it's very easy to label yourself as someone who would be a people pleaser. It's very easy to label yourself as someone who, you may think like, oh, just a people pleaser, or you may think that, oh, I'm just like so agreeable and I'm so easygoing. But what you really fail to look at is like just your perception. I think one thing I've always had to just hold close to my heart personally, as someone who's an avid reader, is how, just generally speaking, reading books and having like a diverse body of knowledge, right? Like, I'm not someone who has any specialized knowledge, right? I'm not just a doctor and all I know is like kinetics and biology, right? That's not me. I mean, I read all different kinds of books. Like, there's the book right there about the NFL. There's a book about Black Indians. There's a book about schizophrenia and, Thomas Sachs's work on mental health and the myth of mental illness, right? There's a book up there about Black footnotes, Black people. I think it's called Footnotes. I haven't read that one yet. But then there's a book, Biblical Perspective, right? There's Creative Inc. So it's just like, I mean, that's just one of my bookshelves. So it's like, I only read nonfiction, right? I just did recently purchase a fiction book. I think I probably read like maybe 2 or 3 fiction books in the last like couple of years, but like not really. And I only read a fiction book because I remember I was going to this bookstore, and the lady who I really, the owner of the bookstore, I just completely admire her. But she offered, she was like, you should check out this fiction book, because I was telling her about all the work that I was reading, all the things that I was reading, and how frustrated I was about the way things were. Because, when you start reading about history and facts and all those different things, it opens your mind, And so being someone who's always kind of been like a reader, it puts you on a planet by yourself, okay? Because I'm not into feminism, right? I don't dive deep into anything because that's just not the way I do things. It's not really what you know what I mean? And I think for a lot of people, that would be something that's considered confusing. I've never been one to kind of put any psychological label on a thing, because I think a lot of times we use labels just to kind of like get an understanding and to simplify things, right? Going back to the American way of living and being and doing things, we just have to label it, right? We have to just classify it, because that doesn't really require us to look at the thing deeper. So we have a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm just this one way if it's socially acceptable for a moment, right? You have a lot of people who start to identify with current trends and things like that if it's just acceptable for the moment, because, it's easier to just be like, okay, yes, this is the thing, this is the solution, this is where I am. I've seen this before, this is what it is, versus to say, okay, what are the other possibilities? And I don't think a lot of people, tap into that. And so when we start talking about, white people and how white people got to grow up, you know what I mean? Like, you have to understand, like, you've been segregated, you've been lied to about a lot of different things as well in American society. You've been lied to about, your identity. You've been lied to about your history, your culture. You've been lied to about, certain other people's cultures and all these different things, and how, you've been taught and all these. So it's like in all the ways in which we seek to uphold America and American and learning and the things that we've learned through American institutions, right? It's very linear. I remember being in my college courses thinking that this would be the place where I would actually be able to share some of the things I've learned, and, thinking that my professor, right, this person who's, who has a doctorate degree, this person who's able to really come and tell me something that I don't know, you know what I mean? This person who can teach me something. And I'm looking at this person as a respectable respectable authoritative figure. I'm like, okay, this is a professor, so this is someone who has to have a body of knowledge to be able to come and teach a college level course, and that's absolutely not true. And so when you realize that like there's only one book, when you go to college, you're only learning about one specific thing, you don't look up and realize like, oh my God, there's so much I don't know. And because we like to kind of just keep these very simple, right? Going back to my reference in regards to like white supremacy and just how everything is very linear, we don't really give weight to that, right? People who would be considered like divergent thinkers or people who, enjoy and employ independent study in their lives, these people are considered weird, castaway, and indifferent. Okay, they're put in a box that we're gonna probably psychologically, medicate, induce, and reduce just so we can get a general understanding of what we're dealing with. When you start talking about intellectualism, it doesn't exist in American society. There's no place for it. It cannot possibly exist, right? Intelligence is not solely classified by getting a degree and having specialized knowledge. That would be considered a skill. That is not intelligence. And yes, we all have specific areas of intelligence, right? Like we know that there's different levels of intelligence. There's interpersonal, extrapersonal, intrapersonal, interpersonal, right? Kinetic, all those different things, right? But it's like when you start talking about just knowledge and the love of learning, that's just not something that is upheld in society. So a lot of people, if you relate to my channel and if you listen to me talk and you were able to follow my thoughts and you're like, yes, this is my space, you know what I mean? Then you completely get it. But I realize that it is not something that is for everybody. And I always go back to, just recognizing and acknowledging and identifying what, the realism that in American society, nobody has time to just sit and read books all day, right? A lot of people are reading to, as a form of escapism. Some people read other things and they find it enjoyable. I'm not shaming anybody who doesn't read nonfiction, no, but I'm just saying like commonality, okay? It's not a thing. A lot of people are typically into one specific thing, right? It may be all Black history. It may be, this, it may be fiction or whatever the case may be. But I just, I don't think it's very common to meet people who have a diverse body of knowledge. And so, to kind of be in this space, it does feel a bit like an island. I think there was someone who had a comment on one of my videos and they were just like, I can't believe this person has a college degree. Sweetie. Of course I don't have a college degree. You know what I mean? If I had a college degree, do you think I would even be able to think? No. College is not the space for you to go and think and have free reign. It doesn't exist like that, right? It's about read the book. This is the one book that we're going to talk about. Read this, do this, okay? Follow through with these assignments, and that's the end of college, right? It's not, you don't go to college to have intellectual debates. You don't go to college to develop critical analysis and critical theory. I mean, maybe depending on the college that you go through. I mean, at this point, I'm getting older and I'm realizing that there's a lot of educational opportunities out there for those who are considered gifted. But that's a lot of times, when you're a Black, poor, or somebody else who's probably poor, those schools are for people who have connections and money. So it's like if you're growing up and you're not on that back end, you're not going to have that development. So a lot of times, everything that you possess is underutilized. And we see this even in celebrity culture, right? We want to milk those who are gifted. We want to milk those who are creative. And the moment that they kind of start to deviate a little bit too much from, our classification of them, our specialized, or they're what we want them to specialize in, then we start to say, okay, hold up, this person is struggling with a mental da-da-da-da-da, And so it's interesting. And so I think being in this space where we have such shallow thinking, it's just different. It's very different. I think the ability to look at things from a different perspective, it's going to help you a lot in life, and I don't think that it's a lack of, like stating on business, because I think you can absolutely, completely dive into something. And I think that's amazing. I think that's great. I'm not knocking that. But I do think we have to kind of look into what we consider intelligence. And then you also have to consider certain things as well, right? Who's given the opportunity to sit and think? Now, I'm no Jordan Peterson, but just to reference Jordan Peterson is considered genius, right? Robert Greene is considered genius, philosophical, all of those things. But as a Black person, it's like, I don't know. You can't. I'm not saying, listen, oh no, not me. Not me. I would not consider myself a genius. But I'm just saying that, we have to understand this as well, right? We start talking about who's the laborers, okay? Who can be the laborers and who can be the thinkers, right? You go to any philosophy book. I'm just saying. So I think all in all, we just have to realize that everything has been structured in such a way for us to think one way, okay? And if you're someone who doesn't like thinking, then that's okay. But like, that doesn't necessarily mean those who do like thinking are wrong, or, you know, those who do like thinking should be medicated. Okay. It's a brain. It's pretty powerful. It's not something everybody enjoy. I know for me, I enjoy mental gymnastics. That's just what I like to do. That may not be your thing though. You may see that to be, you know, exhausting. You may find that like, why do we want to learn about these different things? I don't care to learn about these different things, you know? So it's not for everybody. But yeah. So anyway, there's absolutely nothing wrong with, you know, seeing the world from different perspectives. There's absolutely nothing wrong with not being so rigid in your thinking, in your being. Does it make life a lot more simpler? Yes, but I enjoy a little complexity in my life, and it's not something that, you know, everybody else would enjoy, and that's okay. So this video is more so for anybody who also is just really into learning and you just genuinely like learning. It's not for everybody. Everybody doesn't like learning. That's okay. You know what I mean? Like, that's completely okay. And it's more so just to kind of give light to the realism of those who have gifts and those who have things that they're really good at and passionate about, but because it doesn't fit into this one linear way, there's misunderstanding and there's overclassification and misdiagnosis of a lot of people. So you have to kind of be mindful of that. And I think one of the things that's most saddening about those who are so capable, right, and intellectually gifted or whatever the case may be, is a lot of times you're in the wrong environment. And so you have all of these gifted adults out there, and it's like they're completely underutilized. And the ones who we do, you know, utilize, we completely milk them. You know what I mean? Completely milk them. And the moment that they start to deviate from any classification, any box, right, that we've put on them, any identity, then we have to punish them. We have to completely throw the person away, throw the gift away, throw everything away, you know? It reminds me of when someone was talking about O.J. Simpson on NPR today, or maybe that was yesterday on NPR, Code Switch. It was interesting. One thing that Gene Demby said, which shout out to Gene. I really like Gene Demby and it could be Dumby, but I think it's Demby. Okay. I really like him on NPR Code Switch. He's probably one of my, like, definitely a great podcast host. But he just kind of they were talking about O.J. Simpson and how O.J. Simpson kept trying to deviate in, like, his identity, right? Like, he didn't want to be black. He didn't want to just be a football player. He didn't want to just be, you know, and when I just think about how we take these celebrities, right, these public figures, and we just like completely dissect and we just pick them apart. And obviously there's different, right, like obviously as it pertains to NPR Code Switch, they were talking about something completely different. So this is not to take away from that, but it's more so just to say, like, what I'm saying over here is how we take these public figures and it's like we fail to look at their humanity, and not from a sense of like empathy, like, oh, this person can feel, but more so just like really looking at a person, like, psychologically, right? You take this young person, right, who's you know what I mean? And then you put them in this place of like fame and stardom, and they can get anything they wanted. And it's like, we never really look at it from a psychological standpoint. All that this person is going through, all the changes, you know, and it's like, nobody ever really stops the process. Like, what is that really like? Of course simply put, of course, you're just gonna really kind of be off a little bit. I'm not justifying abuse. That's not at all what I'm pertaining to. I'm more so pertaining to his struggle to identify as a thing and to kind of, like, you know what I mean? And so I don't know. I think we could look deeper into that. I hope you're picking up what I'm putting down when I'm talking about this and using this as an example. But yeah, I just think it's very interesting. Like, I think we look at these celebrities and we look at people who've done great things and they're like the first, and we don't really realize like all that they're struggling with in that, you know? And I could just only imagine that being so like utterly challenging to kind of like find your footing in that. And I'm saying this in a very simplistic way, but I wish I had a little bit more terminology for lack of better words, right? I feel like I'm simplifying it, and maybe it is a little simple, but it's just like, I don't know, you know? So I more so think about that in terms of just the human being navigating different experiences. I don't know. Do I think some people are just a little bit more easier with like being more one track? Maybe. Do I wish I could be that way? Maybe. Do I think that it's a mental thing? I'm going to say no, because, well, there's evidence as to why I think the way I think. I mean, I didn't read all these books. You can't possibly, like, it's obviously coming out. You know what I mean? Like, it's not one of those things where it's like, you know, if you are someone, you relate to this, right? Like, you're not gonna just be one way. If you've read so many different things, you have so many different perspectives. Unfortunately, when you're on the island by yourself and, you know, you haven't met your people and you haven't met people who also just enjoy reading numerous subjects, right? Various subjects in nonfiction, then yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna sound crazy. So, do I think that there's oftentimes a lack of fulfillment in that aspect of my life? Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, but I think I've done a really good job at managing and just kind of like, you know, not assimilating more so, but I don't know. Have I given up on kind of like finding a tribe? Yeah. You know, I make my YouTube videos. I enjoy it. This is more so like a rant. I'm kind of rambling, but I truly believe that dialogue actually breeds like a resolution. And I think that was Carl Jung who said that. One of them. So anyway, I think that's the end of my rant because I have to go back to work. But all in all, yeah.